And then now, because you have the funding set aside, you have access to be able to buy that property. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of stuff, if you buy it distressed, you don't even have to go through the banks to get it.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean is that you don't have to get a loan necessarily, right? As far as like a mortgage or anything like that. So you can get, like we talked about earlier, no doc loans, right?
Yeah.
Some of you can get for $30,000. Some of you can get up to $50,000 depending on the bank. But you can get access to 0% interest rate credit cards. And some of these joints,
You can swipe a credit card for a house?
You can buy a house on a credit card, absolutely.
Okay. What's good, world? Welcome back to the Tuned In with Tony podcast. And I've got an amazing guest on the show today. Somebody that is, really starting to make his noise in the business funding section. It has a lot of knowledge when it comes to helping entrepreneurs just like you start their business. And he goes by the name of Josh Earl, business funding strategist. Thank you for coming to the show. Welcome, Josh.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, so we're basically going to dive in and ask Josh a bunch of different questions because a lot of times when people are starting their business as a new entrepreneur, they don't really know where to start, right?
Yeah, yep.
And then we could just start with just like with your title, business funding strategist. So if somebody is new to starting their business, they're probably bootstrapping, right?
Absolutely.
They're probably like, whatever money they got saved up, pulling money from their job, whatever that is. And the reason I want you guys to hear from Josh Earl today is because when should they come to somebody like you to get funding? When does it make sense when you're starting your business?
Yeah, good question. Good question, man. I would say you need to see me as soon as you have the idea about starting a business. As soon as there's something that pops in your mind, because to your point, a lot of people are bootstrapping.
Right.
And even like myself, I used my personal credit to actually start a business. And that ended up having me in $200,000 worth of debt, bro. So before you get to that point, holla at me and let me actually see what you're trying to do and actually shape you through a program that's going to structure everything properly for you. That way you can get everything done the right way the first time.
Okay, so let's just use an example of like super small business, right? Because I know you've dealt with people who've gotten $500,000 in funding, and we'll talk about all that stuff later. But even let's just say to like maybe clients that I work with, right?
Okay.
When they start the business, they buy, whether it's the funnel package or whatever, but I usually see that they don't have money for traffic. They don't think about that, right? And then it makes me feel a certain way because I want them to do well, but I don't want them to put a strain on their family.
Right,
Like we just talked to someone, he's got 3 kids. It's time to launch his webinar, and it's like ad money, right? So does it even make sense when somebody is like not necessarily has employees, office space? Can they use somebody like you to like get their digital business off the ground?
Absolutely. I mean, really, it doesn't matter. Honestly, bro, even if it's a person who works for DoorDash, a person that works for Uber, a person that is in real estate that's actually going through the process of actually flipping rentals or whatever. So there's many different strategies that can be used, and it just really depends on where that person is in their journey. And so that's another reason why I say if you're just starting out, come and talk to me. Let me look at what you're doing so that way we can get everything structured right. But even if you're not just starting out, I still can look at where you are and correct anything that was done wrong, which I do that all the time. My team does. Correct anything that was done wrong. We structure it properly, and then we're able to move forward from there. So I don't care what your situation is. Whatever it is, wherever you're starting out at, we can get you taken care of for sure.
Because even as small as somebody doing DoorDash, they may need the car, right? And they're trying to figure out like how to get funded to actually start this business. Okay, that's great. So another thing that I wanted to ask too is like when it comes to people getting funded, right? And what I like differently about what you said is we've seen a lot of people who are just like, no doc loans, all this stuff, get funded. You hear it all the time, right? What does a person need to have to get funded first?
Yeah, good question, man. So I would say the most important thing is a structured business that's structured properly, right? And I'll even back up even from there. What you need to have most importantly would be a social security number that actually is not tied to bad credit. And here's the reason why I answered it in both ways is because some people, which we've actually done, we would actually go through the process of getting you funding through your social as a sole prop or sole proprietor, right? Get you funding from your social as a sole proprietor. The thing is that it's different from a personal credit funding because you're able to get more funding because they look at you as a business. You're a business. Even though you're using your social, not a EIN number, you're still looked at as a business because you're applying as a sole proprietor. So we get you higher limits on that side. We get you high limits on the business side later on, but we also get everything structured properly on your personal credit too.
Gotcha.
So that's why I answered it that way, as far as saying that your social is important because there's so many different strategies that we can use in that way. But even if you don't want to use your social, as long as you're actually structured properly in your business, I mean, really, to me, ideally, that's the best foundation, is a properly structured business.
Got you. So let's break down kind of different elements of what you just said.
Okay.
You said a social not tied to a bad credit score.
Right.
So we all have one social security
Supposed
number,
to,
right?
yeah.
Supposed to, right? Right. So one social security number. So does that mean, just to answer that part, if someone's thinking about that foundation is the credit repair part, right?
Right.
So
absolutely.
if they come to you and they're like, "Hey, Josh, this is exactly what my plan is, but we're sitting at a 620 right now," you got to go credit repair first, right?
Maybe.
Depends
on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Give me a situation where that would, because all I hear on social media is you got to have 680 and above. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, I hear that all day, every day. Yeah. So that's partially true. And typically what people are talking about in situations like that is they're telling you, like, the minimum that most lenders will give you, the ideal limits is you have to be at 680.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, 680 is considered good credit. I know everyone's shooting for 750 and 800, but 680 is considered good credit.
Yeah.
You're at the bottom of good credit, but it's still good credit. So in a situation like that, if a person is at a 680, which, I hear a lot of people talking about scores, but that's only the second most important part of your credit profile. The actual makeup is more important. So how your credit profile is made up is more important than your score. So if a person is at 680 and they have a thin profile, then they're actually worse off than a person that's at a 650 with a thicker profile.
Got you.
So even if you have an 800 credit score and a thin profile, you're worse off than a person with a 680 and a thick profile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So depending on the situation of that individual, how their profile is structured will dictate what they're able to get access to.
Got you. What would be your advice for, like, entrepreneurs that kind of have dings on their credit score, and it's not because they're bad, they've just been applying for everything, trying to scale their business, so there may be a lot of inquiries and all of that? What would you say to that person? Because I felt like that's even what, like, I was going through, because it was like every time we need a loan, you're personally guaranteeing everything. What's your advice to that?
So I would tell them that, first of all, chill out.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because most people, they go and they just apply. Right. But you need a strategy to actually effectively get to where you're going. Right. So if you don't even know where you're going, then you're just blindly doing stuff. So if you sit down and you actually look at what you're trying to accomplish, then you can build a roadmap to actually get you there. So when it comes to inquiries, for example, those are relatively easy to get removed. Now, I will say, if the inquiry is tied to an open account, the worst thing that you can do is remove it.
Right.
Okay. But if you have any kind of, like, understanding of how funding works, and you've gone through the process of actually getting business funding, and you had the person guarantee it, we can always get that inquiry removed.
Yeah.
So inquiries that are tied to business accounts, inquiries that you've gotten but was denied for getting the loan or whatever kind of credit you're applying for, those things are always best to get removed if you're in a process of trying to build a funding strategy.
Right.
So I would just say, like, if your biggest issue is the inquiries, let's just get those removed.
Okay. Got you. So you just said business funding strategy as well, right? And I want to tear down limiting beliefs, like just what people are always thinking about. So I'm sure you've worked with people, seen their financials, and they're probably doing well off, right? Yep. So let's tear down the limiting belief that you only need funding when you need money.
Bro, that's
you see what I'm saying?
That's the worst.
Let's tear down how the smart decision would be, even if you are sitting pretty at the moment, to when you're like, let's use business funding. Because most people think about it, hey, if you've got money, use your money. You see what I'm saying?
Craziness.
So let's tear that down. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I think, well, let me say this first, and hopefully this will help shape or give people an understanding about why I'm saying it this way. So I'm almost anti-PG, meaning I'm really against personal guarantors. So even if you're in a situation where you think you can use your own money, nobody know what tomorrow brings, right?
Right.
So I was in a situation where, I had good credit. I made pretty decent money at my job, and I ended up in $200,000, really more than $200,000 worth of debt. because I was using my own money
Yeah.
to try and fund a business when I really didn't know anything about business at the time.
Got you.
So you need to get funding before you need it. You know what I'm saying? I was recently in a situation too where I needed funding, and had I at that moment practiced what I preach, then I would have been so much better off, because when it got to that point to where my business was exploding and I needed to get the funding, I was like, bro, I cannot believe I let myself get in this situation.
Yeah.
And so then I have to go and like PG something that I would have never PG'd, but because at that moment I didn't practice what I preach, I got myself in a bad situation. It wasn't bad, but I had to get the inquiry removed off later.
Got you. What would you say too, like if you're up at the moment, right? So let's just say we all go through ups and downs financially, right?
Absolutely.
When you're up at that moment, the account's looking pretty, the credit score is increased, you got the notification. Is that probably the best time, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it, to probably start applying for lines of credits, all of that? So what I want you to tear down another limiting belief is people applying for stuff when they don't need it, because now mentally what they're thinking is, oh, that's another inquiry, or now I kind of owe the bank, even though I'm not using it.
Yeah. And
I'll give you one example real quick. I had one of my webinar clients, right?
Yeah.
They did a challenge. And then at the moment that he did the challenge, he hadn't spent any of the expenses yet. So there was an influx of cash. What he then did was went to the bank and got like $100,000 line of credit, because they were looking at what was in there. Even though technically that money was about to move, that's what he did before. You know what I mean? So I want you to kind of just touch on being smart about stacking yourself up, because, and I know I'm kind of answering the question.
No, you good, bro. Yeah, you good.
But it's almost like, like now that guy who did the 100,000, when he does run into some roughness, that's there. So I'm gonna let you kind of expand on what I just said.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and that's a strategy. You know what I mean? And so if people are believing that in order for me to go and get funding, or I don't need to get funding until I need funding, it's crazy, because when you think about it, like the example you just gave, right? There are strategies that we use to where we may take 6 months and say, okay, well, we're going to get even if it's a high interest loan, we'll get it from here, and then we'll take it, it's like a personal loan, we'll take it from there, and then we'll take it to like a Bank of America or a Chase, and we'll open up a business bank account, and then we'll sit that money in there and just let it sit. And we're doing that because banks operate in 90-day cycles. You know what I'm saying? And so if the bank, and this is what happened with your guy, if the bank looks and sees that this person has access to capital, and they've been able to look back over 90 days, then what they're looking at is they're saying, well, okay, his average daily balance is, what, $100,000 or whatever it is. And so they're looking at you as a person that has access to a lot of capital, or even if it's not a lot of money, right? Yeah. So what you do is you can open that account with Bank of America, 5,000, 10,000, whatever you can get access to. Sit in an account. Yeah. You're going to get, more than likely, you're going to get a bonus for opening the account, because a lot of times banks have bonuses that they give you. So you may get $1,000 bonus, $500 bonus, and you do that. If you don't need the loan right now, do that. Wait 90 days, whatever that period is, take it out of Bank of America, and you also get that bonus that they gave you, $1,000, whatever it is. Go to Chase, run the same play. Got you. Go to Truist, run the same play.
So let's pause right there. So now that the influx of cash has been presented to that person, they park it at the bank, what are they supposed to be doing with that specific bank before they move to the next bank?
So what I would say is, within that 90-day period, when you're getting the, because you're waiting for the, whatever their offer is, right? Yeah. So I would tell people that before you move to the next bank, go ahead and apply for business funding. Right. You know what I mean? Because again, I know people have the idea, that the preconceived notion that I don't need to get funding before I need it, but you always need funding, bro. Yeah. Again, the opportunity came up with me, and I just wasn't prepared. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to come up. You know what I mean? And so you always want to be in a position where you're getting funding. So what I would say is, before you take that money out of that account and go move it to another bank, you need to go ahead and apply. Right. You're building a relationship with a bank anyway. And most banks, you can see if you're pre-approved without actually doing a hard inquiry on your credit score.
That's what I was about to ask. I was about to say, like, as you're doing this play and you're parking the money, how do you not just stack yourself up? Because, like, the easiest thing is saying, like, well, let me go online and apply. But as I've learned, there's strategies even around how to apply, you know what I'm saying, by looking at what's on each bureau and all that. Because I would say something that I used to believe back in there. I thought when you got one thing, it was always on all three. You know what I'm saying?
I used to think the same thing.
Yeah, so and I'm seeing that it's not necessarily that. Also, too, what I want to talk about as well is while we're on the smart funding section is
I like that.
Yeah, smart funding. Yeah, trademark that. It's not good to get the funding when you need it because now you're in desperation mode. And that's where MCAs come out. So let's talk about that. You know what I mean? And have you ever had experience with like the merchant cash advances? And
so I personally haven't, but I know about them, and fortunately for me, I've always been able to avoid that.
Yeah,
because that's really like a higher interest thing that they take advantage of a lot of people. It's a good tool, right? But I think just like any tool, I'm not gonna get a hammer and go and like vacuum the floor, right? It's a tool. I'm gonna use it to nail the nail, right? So I think it's a tool, and if that's what you have access to, then utilize it.
Right.
But you can avoid that by doing exactly what we're talking about, which is making sure that before you get into desperation mode in a situation where you need to do that, that you're already preparing to get set up properly so that you can get access to like real funding.
Gotcha.
Unless you have a play that you're going to run and it makes sense to actually do the MCA. But most of the times, from what I've seen with my clients and even people I know, they've taken that because they were in a situation of desperation. You know what I'm saying? And so they didn't plan properly.
So let's talk about too, just like the value of like with your business strategy plan that you give them versus them getting funded, because what we also don't want people to do is get funded with no roadmap then now it's just debt. You know what I'm saying? So since of course, everyone's been in debt, but like using that situation of being $200,000 in debt, whatever it is, how do you like guide people so they don't just I got this money from Josh, and next thing you know,
you know how the internet is, bro. Everything's your fault. It's never their fault.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, what do you kind of do in your business to help that client not just hit a brick wall week one they get the funding?
Right. So, that's actually an amazing question, because what I see a lot of times is people can tell you how to get funding, but where they lack at is that they're not really showing you what to do with it, right? And so I think one of the reasons why I look at that differently is because I have a background in retail management. I've run like Walmart stores, a lot of different like really big like multi-million-dollar stores.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I learned that there's different types of formats and strategies that you can utilize to actually properly grow your business. So what I would say is that if a person is coming to me and they're wanting to get access to funding, I always have the conversation with them about, okay, well, what we doing with this bread?
Yeah,
because when you get this bread, like, I don't want you then coming back and saying like, man, now I'm in debt, because again, people, you got to pay that thing back. You know what I'm saying?
Got to. And they don't talk about that on social media.
They don't talk about it, bro.
Yeah.
But I think it needs more conversation, because to your point, if I'm in a situation where I don't understand money, I don't understand like the mentality of how money operates, and you give me 20,000, 30,000 or more, bro, like that thing blown. And now my credit messed up because I couldn't pay it back. And now I'm in a situation where it's like that cycle that's never ending. It just messes you up all over again.
Got you. So I heard you say that you manage like these stores, right? So how did you go from your early beginnings to getting the opportunity to manage stores to now being like your own entrepreneur that empowers other entrepreneurs? Like, how did those jumps happen? You know what I mean?
So when you say my early beginning, what do you mean?
So like, did you go to college, right?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like, did you go to college? And then like, how did you take that to like, because usually managing retail stores, you went to school for retail management or something like that. And that's really not like the easiest task. So like, how did you even get to that?
It's definitely not. So what's really interesting is I didn't go to college. I wasn't smart enough. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do well enough in school. But when I look back on my life and I kind of look at some of the people I know that went to college, I'm not so sure that you have to be smart to go to college.
I was about to pause you right there.
I don't think you got to be smart to go. You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you a question, because someone had asked me this. So since you've seen entrepreneurship and you didn't go to school, you're a father of three. What's your take on college in today's time?
Truthfully, man, I think one of the most important things as a dad is being supportive of my kids, right? So for me, I would say if they want to go to school, go to college, perfect. if hopefully their grades are good enough for them to be able to pay for it, because I'm not wasting money by paying for them to go to school.
You're not paying $100,000 for a college.
Absolutely not. If they will start a business, I'll be an investor in their business if they're actually going to do the things that I've been teaching them their whole life. But if they want to take their time and go to college, cool, but they're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, my view on college is really a waste of time. A lot of times I go to schools and I speak to these kids in school, and the kids that I'm talking to are the ones who were just like me, failing through school, like just kind of there. You know what I mean? Because I want them to understand that you're not a failure. You may be making bad decisions, but you're not a failure. When I graduated high school, I thought I was a failure, bro. I was like depressed. My girlfriend at the time, she went off to college.
Yeah.
All of my friends went off to college, and here I am.
Yeah.
In a small town, and I was lying to people about going to college, which was weird because it's like, there's sometimes.
Were you the type that was going on campus, hanging out?
I did at A&T, because I'm from North Carolina, so I went to NC A&T and hung out where I had one of my homeboys. Shout out my boy Bragg. I was with him all the time at his school when he was there.
Yeah.
But what's really weird is when I was telling people I was going to go to college, I was telling them that I was going to UNC Wilmington, so the University of North Carolina Wilmington. Which I don't know why I said that, bro.
Yeah.
Like they're first of all not gonna see like, where you at? I thought you was out here.
Yeah.
And people did that, and I was like, yeah, man, it ain't work out like I thought it would. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So for me, man, I don't really believe in what people push down these kids' throat, which is, if you don't go to school, you won't have any real life outside of that.
Right.
Because there's so much that's out here now. You know what I mean? And college really is not the answer for everybody. So I know a lot of people that went to school, bro. They got degrees, like real degrees.
And struggling at work.
Struggling.
Yeah.
I'm talking about struggling. You know what I mean?
One thing that you said that's very interesting, a good spin, I think, in today's time is you won't pay for their college, but you would invest in their business.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And it was, and that actually sticks out to me too, because it's like, it's generational that made us go to school. Like your parents had that push, because my grandma 95, like they couldn't go to college. My parents 63, that's like the first, like you can go. And then some of them went, some didn't. So they were the ones like, you gotta go. But then the world has changed, right?
Absolutely.
And then what we see now, there's so much more access to digital and YouTube and online. And it's funny because it makes so much sense, but I've never really heard it that way. Like, I won't pay for the school, but I would invest in their business.
100%, bro.
You know what I'm saying? 100%. So let's touch on that for the parents or the dads that are watching that, where your train of thought is in that decision.
Well, for me, there's people that I have as clients that, because again, I see people's financial situation, right? And so there's people I have as clients who have, again, they have real degree. These people got real jobs, bro. They got grown people jobs. You know what I'm saying? Like real jobs. And sometimes when I look at what they're making, they're not really making anything close to what they owe in student loan debt.
And that's fair.
So for me, it's like, I would feel like I'm a bad parent if I were to tell my kids, go ahead and get that loan and, and go and use that $100,000, $80,000, whatever it is, and then go to school to learn something and get a degree, which is a piece of paper that you're probably never going to utilize. Yeah. Fun fact, probably 90% of the people that I know that actually have a degree, they're not even working in their field, bro.
Yeah, they just switch.
What are we doing?
And most people are hiring off of skill sets that have been acquired and all of that. Yeah.
And to your point, that's what got me into the place of retail management, right? So kind of bringing it back, because I had this guy, I don't remember his name, it's been so long ago, but I had the same conversation with him then. And he was, what was he? He was saying something like, talking to one of the other guys about the importance of going to college. And I was like, bro, I disagree. Yeah. And then so we're having a discussion about it. And I didn't want to sound rude, but I said to him, I said, listen, bro, you work for me right now. Yeah. I have no college degree. Yeah. You have a college degree. Yeah. I barely graduated high school. Yeah. But you work for me. Yeah. So that,
and you were trying to help him by understanding. Absolutely. And I know you were probably pondering on even saying that at first.
I didn't want to say it because I know how it sounds, but sometimes we need that shock value. You know what I'm saying? Like, people need that reality check. Absolutely.
Well, how do you think he took it though?
Well, he pondered it. He thought about it. Yeah. He was like, he kind of looked up and he was like, well, yeah, but he said, this is my second job. I said, bro, even worse.
Yeah.
You need 2 of these joints.
Yeah.
Even worse.
You
know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So there's some type of like misunderstanding around value for one, and then there's another misunderstanding around education.
Yeah.
Right. And so people, I've even heard it, like I've seen it on shirts, like young, black, and educated.
Yeah.
Right. I went and it's like a school that they went to. I mean, I'll be 40 this year, so I'm not necessarily young, but I'm not old either.
Yeah.
But I'm black.
Yeah.
And I'm super educated.
Right.
But my education, although it was not taught at a formal school, it's education that has actually made me millions of dollars. It's education that has actually come to me because not only was it something I was interested in actually learning, I put the effort in to learn it.
Gotcha.
And I've come out of my own pocket to pay people for learning information from them, mentorship, things like courses, things like that, books.
Yeah.
The wealth of the world is in books, but because it's not a textbook that was given to people from school, they just don't read it.
Gotcha.
And then it's two part. This part was crazy too, bro. Some people they'll read books in school so much that when they get out of school, they're just done with reading books. Yeah. So the books that matter, they never even pick them up.
You're right. You're right about that.
Never pick them joints up, bro.
So what would you say to the person, like you said, I didn't do well in school, right? I was probably, hard-headed, doing whatever I wanted to do. Wasn't the same person I am today, depressed, right? Looking at all the people that go to school. What was the pivot? What made you to be like, all right, I don't have what society told me I needed to have, so I'm already telling myself I'm lesser than. What picked you up and put you on a path to being a CEO? You know what I mean? So can you kind of like touch on that for the people going through it?
Bro, that was a great question. I love that, man. And I so there's a few things, but I think the biggest thing for me was leaving the town that I grew up in. And so I'm from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Shout out to 252. So I left Rocky Mount and I left from that area and I came to Atlanta. And you probably seen the meme real quick. The meme, it says that people think that moving to Atlanta solve all their problems. Yeah. Bro, for me, it solved all my problems. Yeah. So, and the reason why is because I left a small town. Yeah. And one of the first things I saw when I came to Atlanta, I saw a young black guy. He had dreads. I'll never forget it. Yeah. And he was driving a 745 BMW. And when I saw him, he got out, he had on scrubs. And so I just had a conversation with him. Come to find out, I forgot exactly what his job was. But he wasn't a doctor. He didn't have to go to college. But what he did was he had some type of like certification. And so because of that certification, he was able to create a really good life for himself. So me leaving from the small town that I'm from, coming to Atlanta, seeing black and brown people actually killing it out here. And as I'm here longer, I realized like, a lot of these people don't have degrees. I was in retail at the time, but I realized like, there's really a lane out here for you that which you can do great things without a degree. And I had just kind of really accepted my fate, which was I'm gonna have to work hard until I die, honestly, because I thought that I was gonna have to be in retail forever. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to go back to school to get a certification. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. Yeah. So the thing that really shifted for me was coming into a different place, like coming to Atlanta and actually seeing with my own eyes like a different type of black people. Yeah. And I know that sounds, I even hated to say it, honestly, but something really special about Atlanta when it comes to like what we see on a day-to-day basis.
No, it's true because I'm from a college town, Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was great growing up, right? Like elementary school, middle school, high school, because you're not thinking of other cities. You're just like, what's the best school, right? Oh, they're at this school, I'm at this school. So I'm going to go to their football games on Fridays to see everybody, right? You know what I'm saying? You kind of know everybody in there. You can kind of tell like by looking at someone where in town that they stay at because it was a small town. But then it was like once I graduated college, like that year after, nobody was here anymore, right? Everybody had left. And that's when I started feeling like I got to go. And the thing that Atlanta does, and, for anyone that's hating on Atlanta, whatever, really really what we're saying is just exposure, right? Absolutely. Because I would say the thing that keeps you going is, I know, for instance, if I was in Knoxville still, I would just be living super simple life. Working for something basic, Whirlpool or something like that. You know what I mean? Whirlpool. You know what I mean? Thinking I'm like, I do the graphics for them. But I think the thing is yes, bigger cities can delay parts of life, maybe family, maybe this, because you get into the chase. But the ceiling isn't right here anymore because you're always being inspired by this young person, or like you'll run into someone you own 3 apartment complexes.
Yeah, just randomly, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Because like where I was from, it was old white man.
Yep, me too.
That's who did that.
Me too.
But then you start seeing like, wow, I can do this too.
Yep.
And then I would say one thing, I don't know about other cities, but in Atlanta, since we're very creative and entrepreneur inspired, there is a lot of sharing knowledge.
100%.
And so I understand where that change would be. So then now, like you said, Atlanta was the thing that changed it for you when you got here. Mm-hmm. Was it just connections that helped you get to the next spot, or what?
No. Like I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but like for me, I've never really been like, you will kind of have to understand how I grew up, but I've never really been that outgoing person to where I'm just networking with people, right? Like I remember seeing the guy when I moved here, I told you about him a minute ago, and I just was so intrigued that I had to have a conversation with him. But I've never been like a connector. I've never been one to just like, I'll go to a place, and because I was so popular back home, I think that it almost crippled me. Okay. I'm used to everyone knowing me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so coming here and nobody knows me, which is partly why I came here.
Right.
It was difficult for me to network with people because, again, I'm used to everyone approaching me. And so the thing that I guess made it real for me is I was working in a mall because I got into retail that way and like a management position like that. And, if you're working in a mall, I was working in South Lake Mall.
Okay.
And at the time, I'm a little bit older than Waka, but like I remember seeing like Waka. I didn't know who he was, but him and like just a lot of different celebrities who now I know they're celebrities, but I think that was before they were really big celebrities.
Yeah.
But I used to see them just kind of like always running around a mall, and that mall had a lot of different people because again, it's on the South Side.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I would see people sometimes outside of the mall that I saw in the mall, and we would just kind of be like, yo, you work at that store, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you came in there and bought X, Y, and Z because I was working in like an urban store, so they would come in there and drop a bag.
Like clothing store.
Absolutely.
Got you.
Yeah, so they would come in there and spend bread. And in my mind, I'm like, yo, I was making $10 an hour as a manager. And I'm thinking to myself like, bro, what is this man doing? You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times, I just never asked. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so for me, that was the thing was I met people outside of the mall and we connected because we had them all in common.
So how did you go from employee to like, because I know working at the mall is hard anyway, especially clothing stores, weekends, holidays, all that. Where was the breaking point to be like, maybe I can start my own thing? So let's speak to like new entrepreneurs who are inspired, but they're like, I don't know how to get out of this situation, and I'm scared to get out of this situation. You know what I mean?
That's real.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy David Shands, it's my brother. He said something a while back, and I felt it because what he said was exactly what happened to me. So I wasn't, and I wish that I would have had the audacity at the time, but what he said was, I hope you get fired so that you can then later on see just what you're capable of doing in business and on your own.
Yeah.
And so for me, the thing that happened was I was managing Walmart and they fired me, bro. And they literally fired me for nothing.
Well, let's pause too, because I had a friend that was managing Walmart, right?
Yeah.
He went out of college, management and training position.
I
worked him like a dog.
Like a dog.
You know what I mean? But then they're like, coming out of college, $55,000 a year, they were giving him benefits. So he's like, oh, this is it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Nah, they worked him like a dog. He was working had to be at work at like, one time I think his schedule was straight. And then they were like, hey, we're switching you to be here at 4 a.m.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's the play.
Yeah. And then did you just burn out or what?
Well, I did.
No, you got fired.
I got fired, but I burnt out years before that.
Okay.
So because your friend, he came in as a manager and trainee, and it was probably because of like he had a degree and everything else. But and this is why I think like things like church are so important too, because of one of the ladies at church who what she did, she was like a district manager in human resources for Walmart. So she was able to get me an interview. Then I had to go into the interview in like a room full of like 60 something people. Everybody's talking at the same time, interviewing. And I was fortunately able to get that job, but they weren't going to give it to me initially because they said, I can tell that what they think I would do is sit in the office and just manage from the office because they could tell that I'm a critical thinker just based off how I answer the questions. And which wasn't the case because when you're working inside of a store like Walmart, bro, like it ain't no just sitting in the office.
No.
I'm talking about, yo, when I first started, I was working. So when I first started, my schedule was I worked 3 days, off 3 days. And it was like a 12-hour shift, but it was like gravy. It was mad easy. Same thing happened to me, though. They was like, oh, yeah, just let you know your schedule's about to change. What you mean?
Yeah.
That joint about to change. So I ended up having to go work overnight.
That's what happened to him. Yeah.
Bro, like that was the worst. Like that experience was so bad. I had health issues. Like my heart would always be bothering me. My chest would be bothering me. All that stuff happened. And so when I ended up getting fired, I know I'm kind of jumping over it. When I got fired, I wasn't completely worried because I believed in myself. And I had already gone through situations with other companies before. So I was like, yo, like if I came into the last store I worked at, they were making about $80,000 a year, right? I'm sorry, $80 million a year. And so I was like, if I can take this store from $80 million to over $100 million within a year, certainly I can do the same thing for myself.
Right.
Because when you learn how things work, a lot of skills are transferable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so what I would tell people is, if you currently have a job, you shouldn't just be going to the job to go to the job. You need to go to that job, look at their systems, try to understand what it is that they do and see how that you could implement that in something that you're doing, right? And then something else is you got to have the right mindset. So when you're going to work, if I just feel like I'm going to a job, then I may not really take it as serious as I should. But if I look at it as though I'm going to meet with my investors, then what I'm doing now is I'm able to take it more serious. And so I think that if people will change the way that they look at it, then that will actually help them be in a better position to leave out of the job because they can actually plan it better.
Gotcha.
But if you just get kicked out there like I did and you just got to sink or swim, right now there's so much that's online with social media. You have access to information. Yeah. And you just need to learn as much as you can. But people rather a lot of times entertain themselves rather than educate themselves, especially if they have a degree, because again, people think they're educated because they have a degree. Yeah.
And I think the thing with the degree that's very crippling is that, and not to sound cliche, but it does teach you how to be an employee, right?
Absolutely.
And then
that's what happens.
And then as soon as you get in that job, you get stuck by benefits, right? Now, benefits are great. You need them. You know what I'm saying? But if you could build your own thing, they don't cost the world. You know what I'm saying? So
not like people think.
Not like people think. So it's like when you think about people being like, I hate my job, but the benefits, it's like, for $700 a month, you're basically, and that's a decent plan, you know what I'm saying? You're basically giving these people your life because you're like, I can't go anywhere because of that. So to spend that for the people that are, let's go to my guy that works at Walmart again, right? He doesn't want to work there. You know what I'm saying? I think he moved to like Pepsi or something like that. 3 girls, so you can relate, you know, father or whatever. From you seeing experience with business funding, helping people start businesses, what would you say to the guy that's like, I want to start something, I want to get funded for it, but I can't cold turkey the job because all the little girls depending on me? What can they do to open up some more avenues for themselves?
Man, that's such a real situation because you know, what I would say is it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? Be smart about it. So instead of waiting until you need the funding to then try and get it, if you know, like if there's somebody out there that already know that they have an inkling, any kind of idea that they want to start a business and they want to leave where they're currently at, I mean, there's so many safe ways to do it, right? Number one, I would say is the mindset, like I just said earlier. Instead of you thinking to yourself, I'm going to work. Because I'm going to be real too, when I think about it, I was a little bit arrogant, bro. Because I knew like I was running everything in that store and I knew that I changed a lot of stuff in that store and that's the reason why I grew. So if I had a different mindset, then maybe things would have been different for me too. But what I would say is that if they have the mindset of them going to meet their investors and then they're actually in a process of structuring and planning on how they're going to be able to leave, the safest thing to do is to do that. Now you have, I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with a W-2 job, right? So it's easier to get funding. It's easier to get loans. There's so many different avenues that you can go to be able to set yourself up for success. But if you don't really know the avenues to go, then you're just going to stay in that position and just be stuck. But there's people like me who I've actually helped many people go through the process of leaving a job. You know what I'm saying? So there's a pathway to it. But if you don't know it, I almost, feel like Shan's when he said, I hope you get fired today so that way you can actually see what you're capable of accomplishing.
Because sometimes we got to get pushed in life.
Man.
Like I've looked at sometimes some of the most better situations in process
Yeah.
is literally like running into roadblocks, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, an issue happening that makes you jump into this critical way, and now you're like, well, at least we know how to do that now.
Yep,
You know
yep.
what I'm saying? So like when he said, I hope you get fired, the reason why Shan said that is because he knew you was too comfortable and you would never jump
Absolutely.
out. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So sometimes we need that storm to change us. And that's why I always say, like, I think a Bible verse that I always have been, my new favorite Bible verse is always like every morning, I'm just like, walk by faith and not by sight.
Absolutely.
And the reason why is because, you know, we always try to think about what we think,
Yep.
but the plan is always bigger.
Yep.
So it's like you had to, by sight, it didn't make sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But you had to get pushed off the ledge
Absolutely,
to be
yep.
like, let me go try something different. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? So I also want to talk about this because that's like looking at your profile and stuff, seeing that you like also delve into like messing with real estate and all of that. How did you go into that? Because I think what's inspiring about the story is...
I'm sorry, I had to laugh, Tony. My bad, bro. Yo, you said delve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think people really said that word.
Yeah. I did.
Yo, anytime I see delve, I think about ChatGPT.
For real?
I'm
Yeah.
telling you 100%. Because that's when I see
Program,
that,
yeah.
I'd be like, yo, that was ChatGPT. My bad, bro. I'm sorry.
You good.
That
yeah.
word just cracked me up, though.
But I'm thinking about the person that's watching this, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I was a knucklehead. I didn't go to school. I got that little job or whatever that then turned into something that I thought was bigger, to then seeing that this job wasn't even loyal to me and they kicked me out.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So like, how did you get into like, let me learn about funding. Let me take some of this funding. Let me like buy some, you know, real estate or whatever. Like, let's kind of touch on that for that avatar that's watching this.
Yeah, man. So it kind of goes back to what we were just saying. For me, all of these things came out of like a hardship, you know. So the reason why I started to learn like credit repair and funding was because, again, I was in $200,000 worth of debt. I have a wife, I have a son, I have two sons, and I have a daughter. And my wife's a stay-at-home mom. And so in order for us to be able to have any kind of like comfort and security, I can't just lay down when I fall down, right? So I have to be able to figure it out. And so when situations come, I always try to figure out how to get out of it. And so the thing for me was, because I was in a bad situation, I took the time to like figure out, how can I fix my credit? I educated myself, right? And so I think the thing is really taking situations that may not be ideal and really seeing what you can learn from them, so that way you can actually make the situation better. So when I was messing my personal credit up, I found out how to fix it. When I started really getting into entrepreneurship full time, I was able to figure out how to go through the process of getting funding. And I'll just say this: at one time I thought that you should use all of the like net 30 accounts. And then what happened was, I was like, well, it's not good to use those. You really should just use your social as a personal guarantor. But I've evolved to a place where I realize you need to do both.
Right.
Honestly, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that comes with time, and it comes with experience. You know what I mean? And so learning about repairing my credit to get my credit fixed, learning about business funding to start funding businesses. And then what happened was, I was just trying to make money for my family. And so I was doing a bunch of handiwork. But bro, here's what's crazy. Before I started doing handiwork, I had never done handiwork. So I didn't know what I was doing.
It was just something that low expense that you could get into
Absolutely.
and probably wrap your mind around, right?
It was just manual labor that I needed to invest my time in.
How did you find your jobs?
TaskRabbit.
Oh, for real?
Yo, and here's what's crazy. When I first started using TaskRabbit, I went on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and I was posting like, yo, there's this app called TaskRabbit. Like, no one even paid attention to it. Yo, I made over $100,000 on that app.
Dang.
And see, but then that's what I'm saying is like, so using TaskRabbit, I'm like going from here to there to here to there. And I remember my first month I made not my first month, but one month I made $14,000. And I told my wife, I was like, yo, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
But I'm so amazed. I had never made $14,000 in a month at that time. And so what it did was, it allowed me to see like, yo, this is possible. Now, I don't want to be as burnt out. So what I need to do is figure out how to duplicate myself.
Right.
And so with TaskRabbit, you're technically not supposed to send any, like, I can't send you to go do a job for me technically.
Right.
But I did that joint, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I knew people that needed work, and I was like, yo, you need some work? okay, I got clients. Because
would you just call them and tell them I'm sending my guy, so like some random person doesn't show up?
Yeah, because they see your profile picture. So I would send a message in a portal and be like, hey, I'm coming. I'll be there at X, Y, and Z time. And I'll say, hey, can you reach out to me?
Yeah.
And then they would reach out, either text or call, and I would say, hey, I'm not able to make it in time, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have like one of my partners go and do the work for me.
Yeah.
And people are typically cool with that.
Yeah.
I only had one lady that was like, she was not having it, bro.
She thought you were scamming her or something.
Because what happened was the guy that I sent, he did a decent job, but it just wasn't as good of a job as I would have done. And I had already worked with her one time before, and she was really impressed. And so she was just like, yeah, Josh, I'm not feeling this. Like, you're gonna have to come over here and fix it now.
Right.
And so I did, but that was the only time I had an issue because it just wasn't to her standards or her expectation. But he did a good job.
Yeah.
So I think, and I kind of got off track with your question, but what was your question again? My bad.
The question was just pretty much like telling like the route of how
process.
You got.
Okay, yeah. So, and what I did with TaskRabbit was, again, my wife, sometimes she would go and help me too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so there was a lady who I met, and she had like 4 or 5 different houses that she needed to get painted. And I'm like, yo, this lady's got to be an investor or something. And so my wife, she was coming to help me with them. And what my wife, yo, she's a connector. She is somebody who, she's super outgoing. People love her, right? And because of that, like, she has conversation with people and they just become best friends. So she was talking to this lady and was asking her like, hey, how did you get into real estate? How do you have all these houses? And so the lady told her like, well, I'm not really an investor. Because I told my wife, I said, this lady's got to be an investor. She has like all these houses that we're doing. But come to find out, what happened was the lady actually was partnering with brokerages. And so my wife found out about that, and she told me about it. And so when I get information, I just act on it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, word?
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked into it. And so what happened was I was able to get my business off of TaskRabbit and start doing real estate. Like renovations for brokerages. And it was such a bag in that.
Yeah.
That like the bag was really, really nice in that.
So you met the first brokers through your wife's relationship.
Lady that she met while she was doing her jobs. And so, I also used to do wholesaling too. And so me doing wholesaling, that gave me the skill set of finding distressed properties and being able to talk to people, which I hated.
Yeah.
Hated every moment of it. That's why I stopped doing it. But what I was able to do during that process was use those contacts and that skill set to find those properties and be able to acquire them and not send them to my buyers list, not reach out to my cash buyers, but for me and my wife to buy those properties, and then use the team that we built up through doing the brokerage renovations.
Yeah.
We brought both of those things together and were able to just like have a booming business in real estate.
Got you. So you still have those houses from back then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got you. Just rent them out, right?
Absolutely. That's the best way to do it. But what's amazing is all of it started because I really just wanted to take care of my family. Yeah. And so I knew nothing about handiwork. But bro, I would drive to jobs, and as I'm driving to a job,
you're Googling YouTube
that joint, bro. Yo, and this is what's crazy. I actually have documentation of me going to do plumbing. I had never done plumbing. Yeah. Yo, but I recorded myself. Was like, yo, I'm going to do a plumbing job. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. I don't know how to do this thing. I said, but I got YouTube. Yeah. So I literally watched YouTube the entire way there. I was there 6 hours. I think I was getting paid like $50 an hour or something like that to do it, and I just thought like, yo, this is amazing, $50 an hour, like. Yeah. And but me just having that determination not to fail. You know what I'm saying?
One thing that's weird about TaskRabbit, the only thing that I don't like using about it is you kind of like hire them before talking to them.
I don't like that either, bro.
Isn't it kind of now too? Yeah. So you're just kind of like. Versus Thumbtack, I used to be able to kind of like talk to the people. They would always get mad if they didn't get hired because they said they like pay for the lead. But on TaskRabbit, you just like, well, there goes Josh Earl. Let me just click him, put the card information, and now you're doing a plumbing job, and you're like, I don't know how to do plumbing. You know what I'm saying? Yep. But the good thing about it to spin that around is it's all about mindset in anything that we do, right? 100%. And something that's fueling it, because a lot of people just tell themselves that they can't. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Defeated mindset.
Yeah, so in that plumbing situation, it's like you figured out how to do it. And then before like we conclude, I definitely want to talk about like just like real estate, funding your way to like, it's kind of cliche, but I feel like you kind of funded your freedom. You
Absolutely.
See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, even get into the like real estate, what has that experience been like? Because let's go to the social media world.
Yeah.
You got to have multifamily. You got to have this.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Like, what has that experience been like? How's it been helpful to the family by just being able to find those homes and keep them rented?
Yeah, man. So I think you're right. First of all, everything on social media is a lot bigger than what it has to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most people aren't going to show you their failures, but I don't think that. What I'll say is, if you can get in real estate, even with buying a piece of land, right? Just get in real estate how you can get in real estate. Because the thing about real estate is, you can look around right now. It is very, very rare that you're gonna be able to, especially if you buy something distressed. It's very rare that you're gonna get into something and then you're gonna lose money on it. What people don't realize is that you only lose money when you sell it. You know what I'm saying? So if you buy something and you hold it, and you see the values going down and you panic, like stocks, you panic and then you sell it, you just lost. But if you hold that piece of property, you hold that asset, then as time goes on, you'll see that most of the time it rebounds, right? So I think if people will understand that and not think that because like Tony has multifamilies, then Josh has to have multifamilies. No, get in where you fit in.
Right.
Assess your situation and be able to go where you need to go based off of where you are. So that too kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, which is if a person wait until they need funding, then that person is going to be in a desperate situation and they're not going to get the best rates. They're not going to get the best access. And so if you go ahead and start now actually getting the funding, who knows, bro? Like you may be driving down the street, because this happened to me. Driving down the street, see a distressed house and be like, yo, let me just try to see if I can find the owner, see if they want to sell it.
Yeah.
And then now, because you have the funding set aside, you have access to be able to buy that property. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of stuff, if you buy it distressed, you don't even have to go through the banks to get it.
Yeah.
And well, what I mean is that you don't have to get a loan necessarily, right? As far as like a mortgage or anything like that. So you can get, like we talked about earlier, no doc loans, right?
Yeah.
Some of you can get for $30,000. Some of you can get up to $50,000 depending on the bank. But you can get access to 0% interest rate credit cards. And some of these joints,
You can swipe a credit card for a house?
You can buy a house on a credit card, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy almost anything on a credit card. Bro, you can pay your, like a lot of people don't realize it, but there's a company called
Plastiq.
Plastiq, yeah, which you can pay for almost anything with a credit card. Even like things that you typically can't pay for. So if you use Plastiq, you can buy almost anything. But a lot of people too, like I'm buying a property right now back in North Carolina where I'm from, and the lady was like, "Can you send proof of funds?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it's like $5,000 because it's just land." I was like, "I can send that, it's no problem." But bro, I'm buying that joint with a credit card.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know what I mean?
So let's talk about too, because I hear a lot about Plastiq, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is Plastiq doing to like liquidate the credit card and send them the money to where, if let's say you own the property, you bought it on an Amex to where you can't tell Amex, I don't know what this property is. Like, does Plastiq protect that situation?
Well, they actually won't even let you do it on Amex anymore. Plastiq won't. But yeah, they it's like anything. There's a risk, right? So, and I think that's one of the reasons why they take those fees and everything else is because they got some skin in the game too. So if you're gonna do that, the thing is that there needs to be some type of like something in the contract. Like if you're the seller, right, and you're gonna sell it and let me buy it with my credit card, there needs to be something in that contract to where you protecting yourself if I were to later say I never did this. But obviously there's so much like documentation with buying, that there really ain't even a way for you to do that.
When you were buying those homes through like wholesaling and like you were wholesaling and you were like, well, me and my wife can grab that. How much is a house? Not how much is a house, but like let's talk about funding, right? Because real estate definitely is the gift that keeps giving.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people always earmark it and say like, I've got to be lit before I could even get into this real estate game. Bro. What's your experience?
Yeah, that nothing can be further from the truth. And I think people are getting that notion based off of social media again. But, it goes back to the person who, is working at Walmart, like your friend, for example. Any person that's working there that whatever company it is, that want to leave, you have a W-2, right? So with that W-2, you need to utilize that thing as much as possible. It's so much easier for you to be able to buy real estate, for example, with the W-2, because you have more access to different lending products that's easier to get approved for than if you don't have a W-2.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, again, you can, like I'm buying a piece of property right now for $5,000 back home. They wanted $12,000. But I play Monopoly like nonstop, bro. I'm addicted to that joint.
Like the actual game.
The actual game. Like me, like a bunch of my friends, we play on our phones a lot.
Yeah.
And they're always like, yo, Josh, you offer some crazy offers. Like, yo, you're not realistic in your offers. And I say, well, I'm realistic, but in my mind, of course I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pay you more than what I have to pay you. And most people, depending if they're in a desperate situation, they're going to accept the offer. So when I look at something even like Zillow, I'll see how long the property's been on market. And if they're asking for $15,000 or $20,000 for a piece of land, I'm gonna offer them $3,000. I'm gonna offer them $5,000 because they're either gonna accept it or not accept it. But believe it or not, most people accept it because they want to sell it.
They want the problem to be gone.
They want it to be gone, especially if they live in another state as well.
What do you do with the land?
Keep it.
Just keep it.
Yep. I'm not selling anything else.
Okay.
I'm not getting rid of anything else. If I buy it, I'm gonna hold on to it.
So let's talk about that too. Like, all right, you buy the land. There's nothing on it. Can you borrow against it? How does it help you?
It's because it's real estate. Absolutely. I mean, I personally don't do that, but it's viewed as an asset that you can utilize to get collateral. You don't necessarily have to sell something a lot of times. And I think a lot of people don't understand this about funding. You don't have to sell something to get money from it. I don't care if it's stocks. I don't care if it's real estate, land. I don't care what it is. It can be a car, right? You don't have to always sell something and get rid of it to get money from it. So with the land, for example, you can always take out like a lien against it, or you can take out a loan against it. There's a lot of different things that you can do to be able to get access to money. And so I'll say this too, because I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the whole like no document, like the no doc loans and things like that, because I've also had people come to me and say, hey, I can't really prove what I make, so I need no doc funding. What I really want people to understand, man, is that even though you hear people on social media saying no doc funding, that's a real thing. I have so many credit cards that I got with no documentation.
Yeah, just bank statements?
I didn't have to give bank statements.
For real?
Yeah, I didn't have to give anything. I basically so there's this thing called stated income. So they're asking you, how much do you make? And so you tell them what you make, and based off of that answer you gave them, they're taking that into consideration with your profile and everything else. And I'll use one company in particular, Discover. Discover, what they did was they gave me it's a personal credit card, which I like to focus more on business side because I get higher limits, but I think I had like a $10,000 Discover card. I still have it. But what they did was they approved me for no documentation. And maybe 2 months later, they came back and said, hey, we need you to verify your identity. And so I did everything they asked me to do. And actually me and Shans we were going to Texas. And they locked my card, but then they unlocked it again because I was able to provide them like my driver's license and a selfie of me. And so they unlocked it. Bro, maybe 2 months later, these folks locked my card again.
Okay.
And then they said, we need to verify your identity. I said, yo, y'all just did this. What are you talking about? But this is what a lot of people don't know, because a lot of people who talk about no doc loans are not real practitioners. They may have just regurgitated what they heard. But here's the thing. So when Discover told me they needed to verify my identity the second time, I already knew what they were doing. They were trying to see if I really make the money that I say I make.
Got you.
Because this is how they wanted to verify my identity. They said, you need to submit your tax statements. You need to, there's a lot of different things they told me I had to do. And I told them, I said, well, what if I don't have any tax statements? Because here's another thing about me. I'll dance on the lines a lot of times to get data from places to figure out how I can better help my clients.
Gotcha.
Because I know at some point I'm gonna have a client that get in that situation and they can't give tax statements. So I asked the lady about it. I said, well, what if I don't have tax statements? She said, well, what you can do is you can go to the bank, have your bank print off your your statement, but the bank has to notarize it. And so I'm like, okay, but what does that have to do with my identification? They said, well, we don't need to see how much money you make. We just need to identify you. But why do you need my taxes or my bank statements to identify me? So here's something that's important about this whole situation. I didn't give them a tax statement. I didn't give them bank statements. I didn't give them anything aside from access to something that's called the work number. You're familiar with the work number?
No, I'm not.
Bro, most people are not. So, and I'm glad it kind of went into this direction, but So Discover, when they locked it the second time, the only reason that they unlocked it without me giving them any of that stuff that they requested was because when you look into the work number, if anyone go to theworknumber.com and you put your information in, bro, like you're gonna be surprised. These people have, I think Experian or Equifax, one of them actually control it, or it's powered by them. They have every job you've ever had. They have
theworknumber.com.
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 Check that joint out.
Yeah.
They got all your jobs, bro. They got every pay. Like if you got paid every 2 weeks, they got documentation of that joint.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Check it out because they have so much information. So when I hear people tell people to lie on applications, a little bit I feel kind of like, bro, if they look into that, it's easy to catch you.
Yeah.
But because I have a business and I pay myself on payroll with ADP, I actually do have W-2. I do have a check stub. So here's what happened. Because Discover was able to get access to my my work number information, they saw the amount of money I get paid, and so they released the lock.
Got you.
So I didn't have to give them all that other stuff. They just looked into the work number.
So you'd advise entrepreneurs to definitely put themselves on payroll?
You have to put yourself on payroll.
Versus just using the business's
Don't
money?
do that. That's the worst thing that you can do is just use the business money.
Yeah.
It's like I said earlier, you get so much further if you have a W-2. What people don't realize is that the W-2 does not have to be another job. It can actually be your W-2.
Got you. That makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
So for all the people that are like, wow, Josh was talking to me, where can they find out about you? And then what are the services that you have that can help them?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at CEO Josh Earl.
Okay.
I'm trying to funnel people to that one specifically. I have a bunch more followers on Facebook and TikTok, but I want to prioritize Instagram. I do a lot of trainings on Instagram as well, so they can find me on Instagram. You can also go to www.ceojoshearl.com, and you can find information on me there as well. And the thing is that if you were to reach out to me and just let me know what it is that you're trying to get help with, more than likely I can just answer the question for you real quick if it's something small. But what I would say is I offer free consultations, so it's best to book a consultation because I can sit down, look at what you have going on, and be able to really assess your situation. And, one of the things I want to share real quick is that so there's two of us, but one of the things that really separate what I do from a lot of other people is I actually have a lot of data points because I have partnerships that allowed me to get access to software that actually shows the documentation and the data points that lenders have. So if you're a person who you want to understand what's required of you based off of a specific lender
before getting the inquiry,
before even getting there, and because of the space that I'm in, I try not to guarantee anything to people, but it's a 99% chance that whatever you're trying to apply for, like I can look at it with software that I have, and I sell the software too, but I can look at it and say, okay, well, you are able to get approved for this, you're able to get approved for that, just depending on what it is.
That makes sense though, because I used to wonder how Credit Karma always says 99% odds you're going to get this card, so they're using software. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Everything is run by AI now, man. So it's like when people apply for places, they apply to banks or whatever it is, they think that that a person is really looking at their application, but people are not. 90% of the time, it's actually a robot. You know what I mean? It's AI that's looking at it, and so if you are trying to guess data points or guess what information you should put on the application, you're just blindly doing it. I literally have software. It structures everything in your business for you. It actually shows you what you qualify for based off the information that they have. And it's not something that's old. It's actually updated daily. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be honest, it's not something that I was able to put together myself, but it's because of partnerships that I've bought into. I've spent a lot of money to get the software made, a lot of money. But I'm partners with Nav. I'm partners with like a lot of different companies. And so I have data and access that most people in my space just don't have.
Man, that's awesome.
So that's one of the things that
one of the value props.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys heard it from my guy, Josh Earl. Remember, no matter where you are, smart funding by getting funded before you need it, not just when you're in trouble or you need dire situations. And then, like we said, you pretty much want to fund your freedom, right? So you want to get the money, even if you don't need it, you want to park it in different places so
Yep.
that you can get more money. So that one day, like Josh, when you're driving by, whether it's a business opportunity, maybe it's a house or for sale, you have the access to scale your life up and your business up. So thanks, Josh, for coming.
Appreciate you, Tony.
Let them know the social media one more time,
Yeah,
and we're out.
you can follow me at CEO Josh Earl on Instagram. I'm really on all platforms, but again, if you like, there's a lot of information I didn't share because I don't know who's watching it, right? And some of my business partners may be watching it, but I do a lot of teachings on Instagram. I don't save the lives when they're done, so I highly suggest you tap in with me on IG, and you can learn all these things that I'm talking about and more.
All right, y'all. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.